progress.
So, hi Paul. So lovely to meet you in this forum. Would you please start by telling us a little bit about who you are?
I'm Paul Golden. I'm a midwife and a legal practitioner. So I've got clinical legal expertise in neonatal and maternity care for about 35 years. I work globally, registered UK, that registration's disappeared at the moment, New Zealand and Australia. And when I say that registration disappeared, I had a case with my regulator for giving care in France without indemnity insurance, where there is none. And the regulator did not allow my defence, didn't allow me to present. And when I appealed that in the High Court, the judge told them off, but allowed the strike off to continue. So there are many cases like this. And after some time, I'm allowed to appeal again. I tried the Court of Appeal. They just said, we agree with our colleague in the High Court, and nobody's looked at it. So I've spent over 30 years defending, representing clinicians, nurses, doctors, midwives, also doulas, but also families. And maternity care is quite often lacking, and people have very valid questions about the lack of care, and they want answers. So I encourage people to write statements of fact, whether they're a clinician or a parent, what happened, what went wrong, when and where, the dates, times, places, names, and go to the people you're complaining about, but you're not really going to get a solution there until you go to the court. But I'm a mediator, I'm a family law mediator and adjudicator. When people threaten litigation, then the other side will come to mediation. So that's some of my background. I'm also a parent. I'm an identical twin born at home with a surprise twin behind. I have twin sons who are identical, and I have a daughter. So I've witnessed care for my premature babies 3 months early. I've seen what neonatal care is about. I've represented and supported families, also clinicians, like I mentioned, including I've written about Lucy Letby case in the UK. I was involved in the Constance Martin and other cases where, say, a teenager has a baby at home, doesn't even know she's pregnant, the baby's died. Why would we criminalise somebody who's not only got pregnant, must have been statutory rape? And yet the police are arresting some people, shopping around for expert witnesses, like they did with Zoe Evans and Lucy Letby, who will agree with their very limited thing. One of the cases I'm dealing with even today, a statistician has provided brilliant insight that the knee-jerk reaction of, oh, something happened, it must be someone's fault. Sometimes it's just things happen. Congenital abnormalities, number one, coincidence, a bit of medical negligence, systems fail, there's shortage of staff and resources. So I look at the whole big picture, look at legal things, mostly compassionately. There's no enemy. When people get it wrong, I treat my enemy as my twin brother and say, what can I learn from them? How can I change my response? What can we do collectively? So I think there's a lot to share from other cases, hence my book, Protect Your Practice. And the casebook that goes with that is a global birth legal casebook where various people have been put in jail, often without proper evidence. So that's what I'm about, clinical and legal evidence. What a long introduction.
That was a wonderful introduction, a lecture in itself, and thank you so
That's
much,
everything.
Paul. Yeah, I mean, our paths have crossed again and again over the years, and I've admired your work, and I've got your book, and I can see where the intersections are, because once you start standing up for women who get stuck in this technocratic system that we try to live and give birth in, you also start to extend your compassion towards the midwives, the doulas, and the obstetricians that work with
Yeah.
them, because they are also stuck in the system and are
Yeah.
also traumatized by being part of it. It's for me, it's very valuable to formalize this connection with you by talking in this way directly about the legal implications, because I, like you, have come to the conclusion that the only way to get the parties to the mediating table, or to a place where some sort of justice or resolution can be found for these women who are effectively abused by the system, is to use the legal route. That litigation is the language that money and power speaks. And women have understandably been very reluctant to initiate a legal process after just having given birth, just having become mothers, and just having suffered a trauma at the hands of the people they thought were looking after them. And I have encouraged women for several years to do that, but without any pressure, because you have to wait for the right woman to come along to start this process, and then hopefully lead to more women pursuing that route. But I think you give very simple, easily understandable instructions. Just write down what happened, when, with whom, and then present that to a court or a lawyer. Most women would think, well, I can't afford a lawyer anyway. What would you say?
So without a lawyer is, self-represent. It's that simple. You know the facts, you know the truth, but it's how you put it together to convince the fact finder that really matters. And that's where some lawyers are sometimes good, but like some doctors are sometimes good. The majority of lawyers and majority of doctors are just going down a single track. They're not creative, not thinking outside the box, and it's not them that's going to lose the case. So you're more motivated, you're more invested, and you've got more knowledge of the case. So you write the simple facts, you sign it, maybe get it witnessed. Doesn't have to be by a lawyer, just that another person's witnessed your signature, not the statement. Before you file it, as a draft, give it to the opposing side. I'm going to go to court with this. Then if you don't get a resolution or engagement and you want to go to court, you say to the court, if you're unemployed or you're on a pension or you're on low economic means, you may be exempt from the fee. If you're in the county court, the fee is very low, between 50 and 150 pounds, something like this. If you're going in the High Court for a higher amount of damages, or something you're alleging is particularly significant, has to be in the High Court, then the fees are higher, but again, you might have exemption from the fees. As soon as you file something, the other side often wants to engage, particularly if it's the UK NHS, they've got a body called NHS Resolutions. It's not often about resolutions, sometimes it is. They often hide the clinical notes, they play procedural games just to win a court case. But sometimes they will engage and say, oh, we're sorry, here's a settlement. And it'd be quite a small thing. And a woman doesn't always want 5,000, 10,000, 20, 30. She wants an apology and recognition it's not going to happen again to somebody else. And there's got to be learning from it. Another route is to go and make referrals for the registered practitioners to their regulatory body. So doctors to the General Medical Council, who have a fairly high threshold before they investigate, and they themselves are failing. The CQC is failing in the UK, the Quality Care Commission.
What's that, the Care Quality Commission?
Care Quality Commission, they're failing. All the bodies fail. But sometimes it's one thing to go to them and also challenge them. The Nursing Midwifery Council is pretty evil, really. They're responsible for killing mothers and babies. There's lots of preventable deaths of mothers, babies, and nurses and midwives committing suicide. So that terrible organisation is so toxic, has endless reports like Maternity saying, oh, could do better. And they say, oh, we will do better. And it just goes on killing people, really, allegedly. So apart from professional regulatory bodies and the courts is the simplest, do it yourself. And if you've invited the other side to mediation, they refuse, and you lose the case, you can say to the judge, well, I tried to resolve this before coming to court. The other side was so difficult, we had to come. Now they're saying their court costs are X amount, like 10,000 or 20,000. That's so unreasonable. We could have just communicated. And if the judge even awards damages, it might say, okay, 1,000 at £10 a week.
Right.
Or he might not. So there is a risk. Let me
just bring you a fresh case from Sweden, just to hear your input on that. There's so much to talk about, Paul, because we haven't even started on midwifery. But from the perspective of a woman who was given an episiotomy without consent and without anaesthetic during her healthy, spontaneous birth in a hospital setting, and now has a rupture to her sphincter. I don't know what you call that in English, but you know what I mean. She has all the way
to the anal sphincter. Is there a connection between the anal and the urinary?
Yes. Anyway, she's at risk of having a lifelong colostomy bag. So she reported the doctor to the police, And the
Good.
police were surprisingly positive and helpful, and even found other grounds for criminal action. And then she also appointed a lawyer. This is a very well-spoken, capable woman, and the lawyer has taken on her case. But it has to go through a governing body in Sweden, which is basically the regulatory body supposed to inspect care services. So it's composed of doctors. So obstetrician will investigate obstetricians, and this is problematic. And what they've said is that yes, we will give our statement on this case, but not until 2028 because of the backlog. And in 2028, her case will be prescribed. Is that how you say prescribed? It's
Okay, you can say that, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the catch-22 she's found herself in. And she's a very resourceful woman. I just wonder if you have any comments on that.
I would push for the court case now. So quite often there's excuses given and systems, oh, we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to be reasonable. No, everybody has a right to the courts. If you go back in medieval times, there's a king or a queen, and the peasants can petition the royal charter and take a case to court and be listened to. When they divert this to, oh, you've got to talk to the medical council, it also reminds me, we also need our own medical expert witness opinions. We lose cases because they've got more quality and quantity on their side than we have on ours. And there's a famous case, you can Google it, anyone watching this, in the USA of a young 20-something-year-old black woman laying on her back, having an episiotomy, shouting, no, 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 stop, 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 don't cut me. And her mother is there saying to the doctor, don't worry about what she said, it's okay, just go ahead. Now, she won the case, it settled out of court, but they had very clear evidence because of the video. So again, evidence is key, whether it's clinical evidence or legal evidence, or in fact, in that case, that was both. So this woman has her own evidence. She doesn't need to play by the system and the game. She can push. I don't understand the differences in some countries. Now, this is where international human rights are way up here, and a local country says, oh, you must follow this rule or that rule. No, you don't. Article 8 of the United Nations Convention on Human Rights is the right to private and family life. Yeah. That woman was able to give birth without being assaulted, battered, having sexual violation, effectively raped, with a pair of scissors. If I went into a restaurant, cut a woman's vagina with a pair of scissors, do you think they would send that to a medical board to deliberate on for 3 or 4 years? Or would the police not arrest me? So this should... Actually, I really encourage all people watching this to contact your local rape centre and write it down, because the emotions are so much. We're talking just simple facts of sexual violation in the hospital. And if the police fail to act, we're very good at taking civil actions against the police. In many countries, it's easier against the police than the judges. And the civil action against the police is they failed to do what they're meant to do. So that's wrongdoing in a public office, breach of their statutory duty, and even negligence by the police because they've caused harm by not investigating. So nobody should wait for a panel of doctors who might well agree with their colleague just to protect them. When a doctor did a breech extraction in Glasgow, the UK, on a 28-week baby where the mother's cervix was only partially open, extraction is the wrong word, it means pulling. We should be listening to the baby and do a cesarean in extreme cases where baby really needs it. And the cervix is not open, the baby can't come out. She thought, I'll just try. Now, she hadn't had much sleep for 24 hours. She pulled too hard. Trigger warning. What I'm going to say next is very upsetting about a baby death. Stop the recording if you don't want to hear it. The baby was decapitated. The head came off. That doctor didn't even have a criminal case. Even her medical counsel just said, oh, she was very tired. She's a good doctor. We'll let her carry on. Now, if there's a home birth with a death, that's not the result. We have criminalisation. Now, instead of extracting, pulling a baby, I even see it at cephalic babies with the head coming out, that people are pulling on the baby. If a baby is genuinely stuck, it needs disimpaction, lift and turn, free one arm, lift and turn, free the other arm, and then support the baby to come, not pulling. So that's how breech is being taught physiologically, yet most people and most places globally, including throughout the UK, even today in the universities, are teaching extraction. So we're teaching a very harmful way. This woman in this Swedish case in my view, whether Sweden has particular laws, you have to follow this process. No, everyone has the right to private and family life, not just a woman, but also good clinical practitioners who are suspended when they've done good things. They can take an action saying, my human right has been breached. Whatever the local laws are, go for the international ones. They do it because they can, they won't if they can't. As soon as you get a legal judgment or a piece of legislation in your favour, things will change.
You set a precedent for others as well to follow suit. Yes, yes. Thank you, Paul. Was there anything you wanted to ask me about the situation in Sweden?
I remember your colleague writing a shadow report for the United Nations Committee on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. To make that short, that's CEDAW, CEDAW. Anybody can look up their website. Every 3 years, a country files a report. It's a little bit false. They say we're helping women in education, justice, and healthcare, and it can always be made better. But the fact they have to go through that process is a little bit useful. Anyone can write a shadow report. I've written them. Your colleague wrote one, Jacqueline. But what comes of it? Often nothing, because we have to follow up on it. I see reports written 10 years ago, they're just ignored. And even that organisation could do more. It's been brilliant in a case in Spain where a woman was handcuffed, taken to hospital for an induction of labour and had a disastrous birth. She then went to CEDAW after she exhausted the national courts. Now, sometimes national courts just refuse you. So then go straight to CEDAW with a complaint. Anyone can do that. And show them what's wrong. I'm distracted because I've got other cases and people messaging me.
Yeah, don't worry.
Today.
I just want to give you a brief update on what's happening with the home birth midwives in Sweden so that you're aware. So there has been recently a clampdown, even more of a clampdown on home birth support by...
Well, I saw the case of your lovely colleague.
Yeah, exactly. So she's just at the far end of it. There has been an investigation into every home birth midwife who is not affiliated with a hospital. Every one of them has been called in for interview by the inspection authorities at very short notice. I think they had a 24 or 48 hours. And not allowed to bring anyone into the room with them, and basically seated in front of a panel of people and picked apart and basically interrogated, and several of them have been intimidated into offering support outside of the medicalized system. So there are now really only a handful of home birth midwives practicing outside of affiliation with hospitals, and there is only, I think, 1 or 2 hospitals that offer home birth as part of a medicalized model. So there's very little support for home births in Sweden, and just as you touched upon earlier, what this is doing, this is driving women away from healthcare services. So women who would like to give birth at home with a licensed midwife and that hands-on relational support are effectively forced into unassisted births that are against their own wishes and will. And so to me, this is an abusive system that is causing danger in a misguided attempt to steer women away from having autonomous choices. And fundamentally, it's about human rights, like you say. You have the human rights. The European Court has shown that unequivocally, that we do have the human right to choose our place of birth. And we also have the right to a midwife. But in practice, we do not have that right in Sweden.
So people should be taking the case.
Can I just quickly summarize also Agneta's case? So I'll just prefix all of the things I say in this interview are allegations. I want to clarify that. This is what I understand from my accumulation of knowledge. But in Agneta Bergenheim's case, which has become a very public case in Sweden, she chose to assist a woman in the home birth of her twins because this is what the woman wanted. She was healthy, she was well informed. Agneta is an extremely experienced licensed midwife in Sweden. She assisted this home birth of twins. It went fantastically well. Mother is happy, children are very healthy. no complications, nothing at all in terms of health to be concerned about. But when the women at a later stage goes to hospital for another health condition, I think one of the babies had an infection, a respiratory infection or something like that, the hospital finds out that she had given birth to the twins at home. The hospital then reports Agneta Bergenheim to the inspection authority, and she was then prohibited from providing midwifery services in the first instance. She has simply continued to provide, to support birth after birth after birth, healthy birth anyway, and her license is now being revoked. I have written about this in Swedish media, but that is basically what her case is about.
Very well done for writing that article. In general, people do things because they can. They won't if they can't. It's up to us to take actions. One of the actions can be doing nothing. It could be keep calm and carry on. It could be legal action. So people have to check with their intuition, go into balance, meditate, what's right for me to do, not for Paul Golden to tell you over the Skype or the video conference. Check with yourself, check with your family's needs. So we need to protect the practitioner. And why is a home birth becoming a crime scene, but a hospital that has a death does not usually become a crime scene? So there's great inequality with how we're viewing, and we're spun stories. I'm a home birth twin, surprise twin. Now it's criminal to have home birth twins. You're criminalizing the midwife because she's then practicing without a license. You're criminalizing the parents. Are we criminalizing the baby? When we're all about protecting the baby and the mother, what really drives mental health issues is all these challenges to mothers, is the suicide rate goes up. So we're saying, oh, we're making birth safe, we're protecting the public, and you've just killed nurses, midwives, doctors that are so stressed with the work that they're doing. And mothers and babies are having preventable deaths and serious injuries in every country. Whatever the death rate, we say in every country, like it's 3 or 4 or 5 per 1,000 in every country. That's a kind of a table. That depends on what's reported. And I'm not doubting some countries have very good data collection and data reporting. But many countries, even England, especially the UK, once we investigate a hospital, all these deaths that we thought were just babies dying of infection or some natural causes, actually we could have done better. So that was a preventable death. So at Nottingham in the UK, there's 2,000 preventable deaths of babies. Other hospitals, 200 or 50 here and there. So that changes that rate. But we all stick with those rates. So I know countries saying, oh, we're very low, nothing to learn, we're doing everything perfect. We're just not investigating enough. We're not being honest enough. And the deaths in hospital from control, for example, cesarean, one of the big misunderstandings is cesarean might save your baby today. But what about future babies and your future health? So there's far more maternal deaths and serious injuries resulting from a previous cesarean. And where the egg implants into the uterus can be where the scar was. That becomes placenta accreta. And that's a phenomenon that's increasing dramatically, causes massive bleeding, placenta comes out in pieces, needs surgery, and results in the loss of future babies. So saving one baby today might cause the loss of several babies in the future and possibly the mother. And that's not me in an opinion, that's metadata analysis of research. Ken Johnson, husband to Betty Ann Davis, epidemiologist, explains this beautifully in his teachings. There's so much evidence out there. So I think we need a longer chat, maybe an hour. We'll do a bigger recording. Yeah. But if this gets people's appetite interested, then we can plan on this.
Let's do that. This has been extremely helpful.
I've got like a minute, I've got to go.
And you know, there is so much more to discuss, but now you know a little bit about what's happening in Sweden.
Yeah.
I know a little bit more about your work, so it's been an absolute delight to talk to you, Paul. And
thank you. As we want to protect your colleague in Sweden and all clinicians that are doing great work, protect ourselves, protect the families, for me it's all wishing everybody great self-compassion. Let's take care of ourselves.
Absolutely, so important. And as part of my work, I've now also started offering transforming birth trauma therapeutic sessions, which involve both my understanding of the systemic problems and why things happen to women, the physiology of birth and what their bodies do right in a dysfunctional system, and therapeutic means for transformation. And I involve ceremonial and spiritual tools in it. And I have found that this is very effective for unlocking and separating the different strands that our culture want to keep entangled, so that all the blame rests with the woman and she internalizes that her body was weak, she made the wrong decisions, she made dangerous decisions or whatever. So I just want to say this is part of it as well, that we need to heal the birth culture, and that involves supporting the women that have been harmed by this system.
And those doing the harm need healing.
100%.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could prevent the birth trauma by having better informed choices and refusal? Not, you must do this or your baby will die.
Yeah.
Here's the risks and the benefits of doing, and risks and benefit of not doing.
Okay,
thank you,
Paul,
Christine.
on that note, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
I'll just turn off the record.